In this world, it's not like it was at Home Improvement. Home Improvement was, I believe, at our top. We're 24 million viewers on a Tuesday night.
Yeah.
I know it's not going to be easy for me, but think how tough things are for them.
I could have never handled this at your age. This is really cool that you're doing this.
Dad, this isn't about cool.
Well, she must have dumped him or he wouldn't be so depressed.
Yeah, that's it.
When Home Improvement first appeared on television screens, it quickly became one of the defining family comedies of the 1990s, blending humor, warmth, and the relatable chaos of everyday life into a cultural phenomenon. At the center of it all was a lovable yet accident-prone host Tim Taylor, but just as important was a young star who captured millions of hearts, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, whose charm, wit, and natural presence turned him into one of the most recognizable faces of the decade. Yet, almost as suddenly as the show dominated ratings, it quietly disappeared, leaving fans wondering what truly happened behind the scenes. As the years passed, speculation grew, fueled by rumors of cast tensions, shifting priorities, and a changing television landscape. While audiences expected more seasons, insiders began to reveal that the pressures of fame, creative differences, and personal choices were quietly reshaping the future of the series. The show's success was undeniable. It consistently ranked among the top-rated programs, drawing families together every week. But success often carries unseen weight. Behind the laughter, long filming schedules and rising expectations began to strain both cast and crew. For Jonathan Taylor Thomas, who was still growing up while navigating global fame, the spotlight became increasingly intense. Interviews from the period suggest that he was searching for balance between education, personal development, and the relentless demands of television production. As his interest expanded beyond acting, the young star made a decision that surprised many. He chose to step back. His reduced presence changed the dynamic of the show, subtly altering its tone and leaving producers with difficult choices about the series' direction at the same time. Television itself was evolving. The late 1990s brought new genres, edgier humor, and shifting audience tastes. Networks began prioritizing fresh concepts, while long-running sitcoms faced pressure to reinvent themselves or conclude gracefully. Negotiations reportedly became more complicated, with cast members weighing future opportunities against continuing the series. The possibility of extending the show existed, but it would require significant changes, something not everyone was ready to embrace. As these discussions unfolded, the once unbreakable foundation of the show began to feel uncertain for fans. The disappearance felt sudden, almost unexplained. One season led to another, and then, without the dramatic finale many expected, the show ended. Viewers were left with nostalgia, replaying favorite moments and wondering what might have been. Over time, the narrative shifted from confusion to appreciation, as audiences began to understand that the ending was not due to failure, but rather a combination of personal growth, industry changes, and the natural life cycle of beloved series. Jonathan Taylor Thomas' choice to prioritize education and privacy became a powerful reminder that even at the height of fame, personal decision can redefine a career and, in this case, influence the fate of an entire show today. The legacy of Home Improvement remains strong, remembered for its humor, heartfelt family moments, and the chemistry that made it special. Its disappearance is no longer viewed as a mystery alone, but as a moment shaped by timing, choice, and evolution. It serves as a reminder that behind every iconic television series lies a human story, one of ambition, pressure, growth, and ultimately, change. And while the show may have vanished from weekly broadcasts, its impact continues to echo, proving that sometimes the most powerful endings are the ones shaped quietly behind the scenes, long before the audience realizes a final curtain has fallen. When Home Improvement dominated television throughout the 1990s, it wasn't just another sitcom. It became a cultural anchor for families across America and beyond. Week after week, audiences tuned in to watch the comedic misadventures of Tim Taylor and his family, drawn in by the show's blend of humor, heart, and relatability. At the center of the show's emotional core was Jonathan Taylor Thomas, whose portrayal of Randy Taylor resonated deeply with younger viewers and parents alike. His natural charisma, quick wit, and undeniable charm helped elevate the show's appeal, turning him into a teen idol almost overnight. But behind the scenes, the very success that propelled the series to the top of the ratings also began to create pressures that would ultimately shape its sudden disappearance. As the show entered its later seasons, the demands on the cast intensified. Long production hours, promotional tours, and constant media attention became part of daily life. For Jonathan Taylor Thomas, who was still navigating adolescence, the weight of fame grew heavier with each passing year. While millions of fans saw a confident young actor on screen, privately he was grappling with a desire for normalcy, time for school, friendships, and personal growth beyond the boundaries of a television set. Reports from the period suggest he began to reconsider his long-term goals, questioning whether continuing in the spotlight aligned with his aspirations. When he chose to step back from the series, it created a ripple effect that changed the show's dynamic in subtle but meaningful ways. His reduced screen time altered storylines, shifted character interactions, and left a noticeable absence that even loyal fans could sense that at the same time, the television industry itself was undergoing transformation. New programming styles were emerging, audiences were gravitating toward different comedic tones, and networks were re-evaluating long-running series. While the show remained popular, creative discussions reportedly centered on whether it could continue without losing its original spark. Cast negotiations, future commitments, and evolving personal priorities all contributed to an atmosphere of uncertainty. Some believed the show could extend for additional seasons, while others felt it was better to conclude before the quality declined. These behind-the-scenes conversations rarely reached the public, leaving viewers unaware of the complex decisions shaping the show's fate. For audiences, the ending felt abrupt. There was no dramatic controversy, no sudden cancellation announcement that explained everything. Instead, the show simply concluded, leaving fans nostalgic and curious. Over time, interviews and retrospectives began to shed light on the reality. The disappearance of the series was not the result of one single event, but rather a convergence of factors, personal choices, industry evolution, and the natural life cycle of a beloved program. Jonathan Taylor Thomas' decision to focus on education and personal development became a defining piece of that story, illustrating how individual growth can influence an entire production. Looking back, the quiet ending of Home Improvement has taken on a deeper meaning. It reflects a reality that television success often hides complex human decisions. Behind the laughter and memorable catchphrases were individuals navigating fame, ambition, and change. The show didn't vanish because it failed. It stepped away at a moment shaped by timing and personal priorities. Today, its legacy endures through reruns and fond memories, reminding viewers of a simpler era of television and the powerful impact of a cast that felt like family. And while the cameras eventually stopped rolling, the questions surrounding its disappearance only added to its mystique, ensuring that the story behind why it vanished and the role Jonathan Taylor Thomas played in that moment remains a fascinating chapter in television history. When Home Improvement first premiered in the early 1990s, few could have predicted just how quickly it would become a cornerstone of American television. The show blended relatable family dynamics with physical comedy, heartfelt moments, and the unmistakable charm of its cast. Audiences connected with the Taylor family as if they were neighbors, laughing at Tim's over-the-top projects, appreciating the wisdom offered by Wilson over the fence, and watching three boys grow up in front of their eyes. Among them, Jonathan Taylor Thomas stood out almost immediately. His portrayal of Randy Taylor brought intelligence, sarcasm, and emotional depth that balanced the show's humor, and it wasn't long before he became one of the most recognizable young actors of the decade. Magazine covers, interviews, and fan mail flooded in, turning him into a teen idol virtually overnight. Yet behind the success, the very fame that elevated the show also began to reshape its future in ways viewers could not see that as the series climbed high in ratings. The expectations grew just as quickly. Each new season carried the pressure to outperform the last, to keep audiences laughing while maintaining the heartfelt tone that made the show unique. For the adult cast, the workload was demanding but manageable. For a young actor still navigating school, identity, and adolescence, it was far more complicated. Jonathan Taylor Thomas found himself balancing scripts and homework, rehearsals and exams, interviews and personal growth. The spotlight followed him everywhere, leaving little room for privacy. While fans saw confidence on screen, those close to production recognized that he was quietly evaluating what he wanted for his future. He began expressing interest in education, exploring opportunities beyond acting, and considering a life that extended beyond the boundaries of a soundstage. When he eventually reduced his involvement in the series, the shift was subtle but meaningful. Storylines had to be adjusted, family dynamics evolved, and the emotional rhythm of the show changed. Randy Taylor had been a key voice within the Taylor household, thoughtful, questioning, and often delivering moments of sincerity that balanced Tim's comedic chaos. Without his regular presence, the writers face a challenge: maintain continuity while adapting to a new dynamic. Fans noticed a difference, even if they couldn't quite articulate it. Something about the show felt slightly altered, as a familiar thread had been quietly removed from a fabric that at the same time, the television landscape itself was changing. The late 1990s ushered in new styles of comedy, edgier storytelling, and shifting audience expectations. Networks began investing in fresh concepts, while long-running sitcoms faced a difficult decision of reinventing themselves or concluding on their own terms. Behind the scenes, discussions reportedly revolved around whether continuing the show would preserve its legacy or risk diluting what made it special. Contract negotiations, personal ambitions, and creative considerations all played a role. While the show remained successful, the question wasn't simply whether it could continue. It was whether it should. For viewers, the ending felt sudden. There was no dramatic scandal, no public conflict that clearly explained the conclusion. Instead, the show quietly wrapped up, leaving fans with nostalgia and lingering curiosity. Over time, retrospectives and interviews painted a clearer picture. The disappearance of the show was not caused by a single event but by a combination of personal choices and industry evolution. Jonathan Taylor Thomas' decision to prioritize education became one of the most significant factors, illustrating how one individual's growth could influence the trajectory of an entire series. It wasn't a controversy, it was a turning point shaped by maturity and perspective. Looking back, the quiet end of Home Improvement now feels almost fitting. The show had always emphasized family, growth, and learning, themes reflected not only in its storylines but in the real lives of those who created it. As the cast members pursued new opportunities and the industry moved forward, the series stepped away at a moment when its legacy was intact. Fans continued to revisit episodes, reliving the laughter, the heartfelt lessons, and the chemistry that made the show unforgettable. The absence of a dramatic farewell only deepened its mystique, leaving audiences to piece together the reasons behind its disappearance today. The story of why Home Improvement vanished serves as a reminder that television history is shaped not only by ratings but by human decisions. Behind every beloved show are individuals balancing ambition, personal growth, and changing circumstances. Jonathan Taylor Thomas' choice to step back wasn't just a career move. It symbolized a transition from childhood fame to adulthood, from scripted life to real-world priorities. And in that quiet shift, the fate of a cultural phenomenon was sealed. The show didn't fade because it lost its audience. It concluded because life moved forward for those who brought it to life even decades later. The legacy endures. Reruns introduced new generations to the Taylor family, and longtime fans still debate what might have happened if the show had continued. But perhaps the most powerful aspect of its disappearance is a sense of authenticity behind it. It ended not with controversy but with growth, not with decline but with dignity. And in that sense, the story behind why it vanished, and the role Jonathan Taylor Thomas played, remains one of the most compelling, human, and quietly emotional chapters in television history. When Home Improvement reached the height of its popularity, it wasn't just dominating ratings. It had become a weekly ritual for millions of households. Families gathered around their televisions to laugh, relate, and unwind with the familiar chaos of the Taylor family. The humor was loud, the lessons were subtle, and the chemistry between the cast felt genuine. At the center of that connection, especially for younger audiences, was Jonathan Taylor Thomas. His portrayal of Randy Taylor gave the show emotional balance, offering thoughtful commentary, playful sarcasm, and moments of vulnerability that grounded the series. As his popularity skyrocketed, he became one of the most recognizable teen idols of the decade, appearing on magazine covers and receiving overwhelming fan attention. Yet, while the world saw success, the reality behind the scenes was far more complex, and the pressures that came with fame were quietly shaping decisions that would ultimately affect the show's future. As the season progressed, the workload intensified. Filming schedules were demanding, promotional commitments increased, and expectations from both the network and the audience continued to grow. For adult actors, this pace was part of the profession, but for a young performer still growing up, it created unique challenges. Jonathan Taylor Thomas was balancing school, personal development, and the responsibilities of being a television star. Interviews from the time revealed that he valued education and wanted to experience life beyond the spotlight. This desire for normalcy gradually influenced his decisions, leading him to reduce his involvement in the show. While the change seemed minor at first, it subtly altered the dynamic that had made the Taylor family feel complete. Randy's voice, often the thoughtful counterpoint to Tim's comedic antics, became less frequent, and viewers began to notice a shift even if they couldn't immediately identify its cause. Behind the scenes, producers and writers faced difficult choices. The show remained popular, but continuing without one of its key emotional anchors required adjustments. Storylines were restructured, character arcs evolved, and the focus shifted slightly to maintain momentum. At the same time, the television industry was undergoing a transformation. The late 1990s introduced new comedic styles and edgier programming, challenging traditional family sitcoms to adapt. Networks began prioritizing fresh content, and long-running shows faced increasing pressure to either reinvent themselves or conclude before losing their appeal. Discussions reportedly centered on preserving the show's legacy rather than stretching it beyond its natural lifespan. For fans, the conclusion felt abrupt. There was no major controversy, no dramatic cancellation announcement. Instead, the show simply came to an end, leaving audiences nostalgic and curious about what truly happened. Over time, the narrative became clearer. The disappearance of the series was not due to declining popularity, but rather a combination of personal growth, evolving industry trends, and the natural life cycle of a beloved program. Jonathan Taylor Thomas' decision to step back and prioritize education became a pivotal moment, demonstrating how one individual's choices could influence the direction of an entire production. Looking back, the quiet ending of Home Improvement carries a sense of authenticity. The show had always centered on family, growth, and learning, themes reflected in the real-life decisions of its cast. Rather than continuing indefinitely, it concluded at a point where its reputation remained strong. Fans continued to revisit episodes, reliving the humor and heartfelt lessons that defined the series. The absence of a dramatic finale only deepened the intrigue, prompting discussions about what might have been today. The legacy of Home Improvement endures as more than just a successful sitcom. It represents a moment in television history when storytelling, relatability, and genuine chemistry came together to create something timeless. The reason it vanished is not rooted in scandal or failure, but in evolution, personal, professional, and cultural. Jonathan Taylor Thomas' journey from teen idol to someone seeking a different path symbolizes a human side of entertainment, reminding audiences that behind every beloved show are real lives, real choices, and real growth. And in that quiet transition, the series stepped away, leaving behind not just memories, but a lasting sense of warmth and nostalgia that continues to resonate decades later. As Home Improvement moved deeper into its later seasons, the atmosphere behind the scene began to shift in ways that viewers couldn't immediately see. The show was still beloved, still drawing strong ratings, and still delivering the familiar blend of humor and heartfelt family lessons. But the foundation that made it